Bernard Francis Casey was born November 25, 1870, the sixth of 16 children born to Bernard and Ellen Casey from Prescott, Wisconsin. They were a devout Irish Catholic homesteading family who prayed the Rosary together every day. Barney, as he was affectionately known, was a rugged farm boy who loved farm work and playing in the outdoors. When he was 7, he contracted diphtheria, a common childhood illness, which left him with a hoarse, whispery voice. A lover of music, Barney sang anyways, and taught himself to play the harmonica and the violin. Although he played with enthusiasm, he was always teased by his friends and family about his scratching, as they called it. Although he was never as robust as his siblings, he had a competitive spirit and enough brothers to make a baseball team. As the Caseys, all brothers 9, they became something of a local legend. Like his brothers, he worked during his teens to help support the family, as they had several years of very bad crops, and every penny that came in was considered a precious gift from God, whom they thanked for it. Going out to work also meant that the boys missed quite a bit of school, but in those days, if you were hard-working and industrious, you could make it in life. During those years, several of his siblings married, and Barney's thoughts turned to his own future. Although there was at least one girl he dated and seriously considered marrying, God had other plans for him, and the girl broke off the relationship. His first full-time work was as a motorman on a streetcar in Appleton, Wisconsin, and he later worked the streetcar line in Superior. However, growing slowly in his heart was the desire for something more meaningful in life. So, with the guidance of Father Sturm, his parish priest, he entered St. Francis de Sales Seminary in Wisconsin. His decision was greeted with joy by his parents, who had already had one son enter that seminary who was forced to leave it due to poor health. They knew Barney's decision had been made with much prayer and deliberation. He never set out to do anything half-heartedly. The seminary years were difficult for him, especially since all the classes were conducted in German, and his command of languages, including Latin, was very poor. His limited education during his teens was taking its toll. In fact, they eventually dismissed him, and he was afraid his road to the priesthood was over. As always, he turned to Our Lady and said a novena along with his mother and sister, asking for guidance. On December 8th, Feast of the Immaculate Conception, he made a private vow of chastity, giving his total devotion to God, no matter what decision was made about the religious life. In a quiet moment of prayer, he got his answer. Go to Detroit. It meant he would join the Franciscan seminary there, the Capuchins. He arrived there on Christmas Eve in spite of a blinding snowstorm. After many spiritual trials, on January 14, 1897, he was invested as Capuchin novice Fr Solanus, named after St. Francis Solanus, Apostle of Peru. Interestingly, he was given that name because of a clerical error. They had mistakenly entered the wrong date of his birthday. Although Barney knew it was incorrect, in his humility he said nothing, accepting the patronage of St. Francis Solanus as the will of God. It was not until some time later, when members of his family came to visit for his birthday, that the mistake was discovered. Brother Solanus found the rigors of the Capuchin life a challenge, but he applied himself diligently to the rule. There was an austere life of prayer, poverty, simplicity, and service, in addition to the studies for the priesthood. Unfortunately, the grades on his final examinations were so low, the Capuchin board decided only to ordain him as a simplex priest, meaning he was not permitted to hear confessions or preach, because they felt his theology was insufficient, and they doubted his ability to give guidance. There was no doubt, however, of his deep spiritual life and his prayerful nature. On this they based their decision to ordain him at all. He was ordained in 1904 and began his life as a full-fledged Capuchin. His official duties included being in charge of the altar boy schedule and sacristan duties, tasks usually assigned to novices. He suffered a debilitating skin condition, but he never let on how much he suffered. Few who met him even knew he had it. His main job, however, was porter, the desk clerk who greeted visitors to the friary and directed their inquiries. What transpired, however, was that many people often came to the friary seeking consolation and advice for their problems. In the early 1900s, times were hard and suffering was everywhere. He would listen patiently to everyone who came. He was always quick to assure people of God's love and concern for them in his soft, whispery voice. Fr Solanus' standard solution was to remind people to pray the Rosary, because Our Lady could obtain everything from her Son, our Lord. He would then advise them to sign up for the Seraphic Perpetual Mass Association, in which the members made a donation and then received the graces and benefits from all the Masses being offered. His devotion to the Eucharist and the infinite divine graces it contains could overcome all problems. Of this he was certain. Every day he would spend time in adoration of the Blessed Sacrament, praying the Rosary for the intentions of all who came to him. He often played his violin before the tabernacle. His favorite song to play was, "O sweet mystery of life, at last I've found you." He kept a logbook on his desk, in which he recorded the Mass Association memberships and people's intentions, leaving space between each entry. Eventually, people would come back to report the favors they received from God, and Fr Solanus would use that space to record the date and favors received. He filled many, many logbooks. "Thank God ahead of time," he would always say. He was convinced that anxiety and fear impeded God's designs for his children, and he wondered why people didn't pray with greater confidence. "We have to put God on the spot," he'd say. Because of his habit of divine spot-putting and the abundant blessings and favors people received, the fame of Fr Solanus' sanctity spread far and wide, beyond the grounds of the friaries he served in Michigan and New York. Line-ups trailed out onto the sidewalk and around the corner as people from all walks of life waited for their moment with the man who seemed to exude joy and confidence in God. He told them of future happy events, of inevitable deaths, of surgical procedures that would be needed or not. Yet no one thought of him as mystical or strange. He was utterly normal, ordinary, approachable, humble, and compassionate. In the summer of 1935, Brother André of St. Joseph's in Mount Royal, Quebec, was in Detroit to visit Fr Solanus. Brother André was brought to the St. Bonaventure Monastery, and the two enjoyed a brief, somewhat humorous meeting. None of the onlookers could have grasped the significance of the 65-year-old Capuchin vigorously shaking hands with the spry 90-year-old Holy Cross brother. Both had become well known for their intercessory gifts. As Father Casey knew no French, and Brother André spoke very little English, they did what they could do, and what came naturally. They blessed each other in Latin, the universal language of the Church. On July 31st, 1957, Fr Solanus died. It was the anniversary of his first Mass. His funeral attracted thousands of mourners, so many with a story to tell of how his intercessions or advice benefited themselves or a loved one. Shortly after, his cause for canonization was introduced. His body was exhumed in 1987 and was found to be remarkably intact, with some minor decomposition on his elbows, easily attributable to his skin disease. His remains were washed and given a new Capuchin habit, and reinterred in his tomb at the Fr Solanus Casey Center at the St. Bonaventure Monastery in Detroit, where, to this day, thousands visit to pray. On July 11, 1995, he was declared venerable by Pope John Paul II. Fr Solanus recently advanced closer to sainthood with the Holy See's May 4, 2017 announcement that Pope Francis had approved one of the innumerable miracles ascribed to Fr Solanus's intercessions. The recipient of the miracle is a woman who suffered an incurable genetic skin condition and who went to his tomb to pray for some friends. Sensing an inner tug in her heart to beg healing for herself, she asked for Fr Solanus's intercession and was instantly and visibly healed. With the acceptance of this miracle, Venerable Solanus became Blessed Solanus, in a ceremony in Detroit in July of 2017. He is now the second American-born male declared blessed. This is Monica from St. Joseph's, asking God's blessings on you, and thanks for watching.